Before we start, I'd like to thank our partners Teva UK, who have sponsored this podcast, enabling us to further our mission to support the well-being of our pharmacy family. Hello and welcome to A Dose of Wellbeing, the Pharmacist Support podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Cochran, Wellbeing Development Senior Manager at Pharmacist Support, the profession's independent charity. We're delighted to bring you inspiring stories, tips, and expert insights that can help enhance your well-being and make a positive impact on your professional life. This podcast is all about supporting you, our pharmacy family, as you navigate the challenges of the profession. Today, I'm joined by our Chief Executive, Danielle Hunt, to talk about how she allowed herself to dream big and become a young female chief executive. Many of us have big dreams when we're younger, but then we grow older and find reasons to hold ourselves back. Danielle became the chief executive at Pharmacist Support at the age of 32, which for many people would feel unobtainable. Today, I speak to Danielle about her career path and what allowed her to dream big and become an organizational leader. So Danielle, thank you for being on the podcast today. I think your story will be of interest to so many people. So becoming a chief executive at any age is quite an achievement, but to do so at the age of 32 is pretty impressive. Did you always want to become a chief executive of a charity, and what do you feel put you on this path?
Well, no, not really. I think like many people when they're young, they have no idea what they want to do. And I think it's fair to say I fell into the charity sector. I didn't have a big dream to work in the charity sector. I didn't really know a lot about it. I graduated with a maths degree, so I think I tried to follow a traditional path. After university and during university, really, I worked in banking and accountancy, which is very linked to maths. And then I think I just felt I needed a greater sense of purpose. I felt like I wasn't on the right track. I didn't want to do that forever. And I was like, what do I want to do? So like I say, I kind of fell into the charity sector because I just took an opportunity, really. I wasn't aspiring to be the chief executive of that charity. I actually just took a 6 months admin contract and thought, right, I'm going to find out more. And I was actually fascinated by working in a charity, and I was given loads of great opportunity to experience like the different elements of charity and the real impact charities make. And I think people don't realise the role of charity sometimes, that, you know, we do so many great things as a sector. And I think from there I was like, this is where I need to be. I mean, in terms of progression, I think I kind of just took every opportunity. I was really interested. So I was like, yeah, I'll get involved in that. Oh, I'll do that. And I slowly kind of developed. And I think it's fair to say I'd always been quite driven. And I was quite comfortable, probably because I was younger, to push myself out my comfort zone quite a bit and try new things. But I don't think I ever set out thinking, oh, I'll be the chief executive. But I think as I was developing, other people could see something and was kind of saying to me, you need to kind of be pushing yourself. You've got the right skills and attributes. Have you ever thought about taking the next step? And I think other people's kind of encouragement allowed my confidence to grow. And I was then starting to dream bigger and really believing that I could take bigger steps.
Oh, that's amazing. And what inspired you to pursue the role of chief executive here at Pharmacist Support? Was there a particular moment or experience that motivated you?
Yeah, so at the time I was working in a senior leadership position at Keep Britain Tidy, the environmental charity, and I've been there quite a while. And I felt like the projects which were really inspiring and the ones I was enjoying working most on was the ones linked to people's well-being. So it might be environmental projects where we have volunteers involved and you could start to measure the impact of being outdoors and that volunteer activity on their well-being. And I was starting to see like you can really impact how people are feeling, you can really make a difference within communities. And I really liked the people element. Not to say I wasn't interested in the environmental element, but that link to people and understanding that small things can make a difference to individuals' lives. I was thinking that's something that really interests me. And I wasn't necessarily looking for a new role. I'd started to put the feelers out and thought, I might just keep an eye out. And then I saw the role at Pharmacist Support. And I think the focus on kind of individuals and well-being and making a difference kind of really appealed to me. And I think at the time I could see how some of my skills and experience could help with some of the challenges the trustees had identified for the charity. And I was like, oh, maybe this is a bit of a fit. It would have been I hadn't been chief executive anywhere before. I'd been kind of in a leadership team, but hadn't been the chief executive. So I was like, I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to be the right fit, but I'm going to go for it and have a go. And if anything else, it'll be great experience. I'll learn from the interview process, and it gets me in a mindset of thinking about what I want. So I kind of, it was the first job I'd applied for in almost 10 years. So that was petrifying in itself, thinking I'm going to have to sit in an interview and I'm going to have to kind of go through the process. But also I was quite excited about learning from that. So I kind of put myself forward and then ended up being successful in the role. So that's how I ended up at Pharmacist Support. Wow.
So you weren't really looking to make this move to becoming a chief executive. It sounds like that was, you were inspired by what the charity did.
Yeah.
And taking the role as chief executive was a part of that.
Yeah.
But you weren't necessarily going out looking to become a chief executive at that moment in time.
No, I think I was looking for another challenge. I wanted to continue my career development. There was definitely areas I knew, I needed to develop more. And that kind of excited me rather than made me feel like I couldn't do it. It was like, oh, that's just an area I'll develop and I'll train and I'll learn more about. So, I think I was ready for a new challenge, and that's what presented itself.
Amazing. And were people supportive of your career ambitions?
I think on the whole, yes. My family have always been a huge support for me. I've always been fortunate to work around some really amazing people, and people who've supported me, championed me, said you should be going for this, help with your back, come on, you can do it. So I think that's on the whole been very supportive. I think I've faced some judgment from a very small minority, offhand comments, mainly from other mums when, I had 2 young children when I first kind of started on this journey around kind of how do you possibly do a job like that? How can you look after your children and give them the attention? But I always felt like I had a good balance. I always felt like I was managing both, and I didn't feel either side was suffering. So I kind of didn't really take too much of that on board. Yeah. And there was kind of the odd comment. I mean, someone once asked me, how on earth do you fit all your cleaning in? And I was thinking, what an odd question. And would you ask that question to a man? How on earth would you fit all your cleaning in? So there was that kind of judgment, but not outside, that was outside my probably close-knit kind of own circle. I think the people who knew me well could see that I could balance that and needed to do that.
Yeah. That's great. And I think there can be more pushback for women as they progress than there may be for men, even in this day and age when you would hope it might not be the case. It is still going on. So what sort of challenges do you think women face when aspiring for a role like yours?
I think confidence can be a real challenge for some, and I think there's evidence that women suffer from more self-confidence issues than men. Because I remember, and it really resonated with me, I attended some kind of inclusive recruitment training, trying to understand how, you recruit the best people, how you kind of make it so that people want to apply to work with you. And the trainer shared a stat that I thought was really interesting, which was if a male looks at a job description and can tick around 40 to 50%, they'll put themselves out there and apply. A woman will only apply if they tick around 80 to 90%, so they feel like they have to have ticked all the boxes. Now, we all know when applying for jobs, you don't tick every single box. Yeah. So I think that confidence was, for me, that's a confidence thing. So that's really interesting. I think another challenge and something I faced personally was care and responsibility. I think still many women take the bulk of care and responsibility and also are maybe expected to. I've been a parent my whole career journey, so and I was a single parent for some time, so I have majority of that kind of care and responsibility. And that was quite hard balance. I did feel like I got the balance, but it was tricky, organising schedules, making sure everyone was where they needed to be at the right time. And And I suppose that links to another challenge, which is mental load. So mental load is the mental work of keeping things running. It can be kind of supporting children, elderly parents, siblings, other caring responsibilities. And studies and research shows that mainly women are responsible for lots of household routines, those schedules, maintaining order, providing that emotional support to children. So that can really, I think, impact women because they're carrying an awful lot. So then if you're kind of carrying an awful lot at work as well, you're in quite a high leadership position, that can be quite tricky to balance and can have an impact.
For sure. Absolutely. And at Pharmacist Support, we have resources to help people manage their own internal self-talk. And when you were on your way up the career ladder, did you find that you had any negative self-talk that could have held you back? And if you did, how did you resolve that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there was lots of things, and it's, lots of people have their own things that they could think about. I suffered imposter syndrome quite a lot early in my career. I felt like someone was going to find me out. I wasn't as educated maybe as some people, or my background, or it was something that someone would say, you shouldn't really be in this room. And that was all just negative self-talk. And I think the main thing I did, I was very conscious of it. So I wanted to work on it. Like I was trying to find ways to kind of manage it and learn kind of new skills. But the best thing I did was some leadership training. And this wasn't for current leaders, it was for aspiring leaders. So it was grouped together with people in lots of different types of organisations, not just from the charity sector, all over in kind of the local area. And you went to meet other kind of established leaders and you asked them questions. And I think for me, I gained a lot from that because I recognised that everybody in that room had their own kind of negative talk and something that they were conscious of and something that they felt like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be in the room. And even the established leaders had that. So I think learning that made me really think about, right, well, everyone's got something and we all need to work on it. And I think then it kind of pushed me, and I did undertake some professional coaching after that, which I really benefited from to kind of help me manage that.
That's amazing. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people because that sense of imposter syndrome, that's something you hear a lot about. And surprising how many people say that they've suffered from imposter syndrome. And I mean, people who seem so confident. And likewise with negative self-talk, it's as people are opening up more conversations about this, it is really interesting hearing how it impacts so many people. So in order for you to get to where you have gotten to at this point, is there anything in your life that helped you to believe in yourself so that you could follow this path?
That's really interesting because I think, like I said at the beginning, I was always quite ambitious and I always wanted to do something and be successful, whatever successful meant, and I didn't have a clue what that meant, but just try my best to kind of succeed in anything that I did. And then I think what happens in your life sometimes influences like your career and how you approach things. And I almost wonder, because I was younger, whether I was a little bit more fearless. And I often wonder if I was to embark on this journey now and start the same, whether it would have the same outcome. And I would suggest not. I would suggest I would probably have less confidence and I would probably be more risk averse. I'd be like, oh, maybe not, maybe I shouldn't do that. And I do wonder whether I'd talk myself out of it. But at the time, and particularly at the start of my career journey, I was facing lots of personal challenges. I was in fairly low paid jobs. I had a big mortgage, 2 children. I was on my own and I was struggling financially, I'll be really honest. So I never thought twice about taking any opportunity that presented itself. If it was a bit more money and it helped me develop, like it was always like, just go for it. I never sat there and gone, oh, I couldn't possibly put myself forward, or such a body in another team would be better placed to do that. I just thought, well, I'm just going to go for it and I'm just going to try my best. And I think there was some drive there where I didn't really fail didn't fear the failure of it. I just had the attitude of let's just go for it and let's keep going. And I think that just continued. So I think, there is an element of that.
Amazing. Yeah, that really makes sense to me. I think for some people anyway, when you're younger, you do have that fearlessness that can kind of be chipped away over time. So I definitely hear that. And having progressed so quickly up the career ladder, do you find it important to support others in their careers?
Absolutely. And not just progressing in my career ladder, but making sure they're doing what makes them happy, developing in the way that they want to develop. I mean, I hugely benefited from mentors throughout my career, from people taking me under the wing and just helping me think about how I could develop, to kind of more formal mentors. And I thought that was, really, really helpful. I'm a huge advocate for personal and professional development. I think that growth and sometimes pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit encourages that growth and maybe makes us believe we can push a bit further. So I'm really, an advocate for pushing people to kind of think about what they want to do. Not everybody wants to develop in their career, but I think it's about, being really happy in what you're doing and feel like you're getting something from it. And I really value the team around me and everything that I've done. I think, we all need to remember that to kind of succeed as any organisation, every one of your team members are really important. So investing in their development, investing in their well-being is really important.
Yeah. And so do you find when you're working with other people who want to progress in their careers that there are any common issues that might hold them back from getting to where they want to go?
Yeah, so I mentioned confidence earlier, and I do think that can be a big barrier for some, like the lack of confidence or, fearfulness of putting themselves out there, pushing themselves out their comfort zone. And I think that's sometimes a bit of a balance. You don't want to push people too far where they're really unhappy and you're negatively impacting them, but also you want enough push to kind of have that growth. So I think people kind of self-limiting themselves sometimes are going, I couldn't possibly do that, possibly having more of a fixed mindset than a growth mindset. So just going, oh, that's not the type of, I could never do that job, or I would never possess the skills that person has, I couldn't step up the ladder. So I think that holds people back, definitely that fixed mindset. And then I have met people who kind of haven't developed as quickly because of kind of some of the way they approach things. So a lack of self-awareness and kind of those softer skills, I think, can hold people back, because leadership is all about people and really valuing your team. And I think if it's not about how well you execute a project and how well you present, that's just a small part of it. If you've not got everyone playing a part within the team, you're never going to succeed as an organisation. I think if someone is just hell-bent on kind of progressing and just caring about their own career, I've seen lots of people kind of fail because they're not really thinking about other people. They've not got the self-awareness. They haven't developed those softer skills. And I think that's really important. And I think if you've got those softer skills, you can open up that dialogue. So you can start to develop the skills, your own skills, the skills of your team. It encourages ideas. Like everyone thrives in that environment. Yeah. And I think a lot of people forget about those skills. So some people don't value them. So they're like, why would I do a course about, how to have a difficult conversation? And it's like, because you need to be able to manage that carefully. And I think that's why we as a charity identified, when we look at culture within pharmacy, workplace culture plays a huge role.
Yeah.
And people do need to invest in those softer skills. And that's why we developed our own training course, Embracing a Wellbeing Culture course, because it was all about, we recognise that. And I think people were asking for support with those softer skills. But I really think that then helps not just a culture, but your own professional development.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really agree with that. And so would you have any advice for someone else who is thinking about stepping into a chief executive or a senior leadership role? Do you have any advice for them with similar career aspirations?
Yeah, so I think joining professional networks can be really useful. I think it can help you personally and professionally. And individual coaching or group coaching can really help, because I think increasing your own self-awareness, understanding your own leadership style, understanding your strengths and maybe your blind spots can be really useful if you want to develop. I'd say, but don't be frightened to put yourself out there. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes, but taking those opportunities, not talking them over in your head and then going, oh, I'm not going to go for it. If like there's something there and you feel like you should go for it, maybe you should just go for it. I think taking opportunities to learn, I think any opportunities to learn, develop. I think leadership training or aspiring leadership training was really useful for me. It really makes you think. So I would recommend that. I mentioned this before, but I think really recognising the value of team and everyone around you in the role they play. If you are interested in kind of developing, I think you need the support of people around you. And I think having empathy, you know, I think that's really important to really think about people. Like, everyone's human, and I think recognising that and that everyone has difficult situations at time and being empathetic is really important as you develop as a leader. If you've not got that, then I think you're really failing. So to think about that. And I think probably the last thing is to focus on well-being, your own well-being and the well-being of your team. I think for me personally, like, a leadership role can be quite challenging and can be quite isolating at times. So I think working on yourself, thinking about your own personal resilience is really important, and finding that balance. You know, no one else is going to do that for you, and it can be really challenging. So if you don't want to get overwhelmed, you need to find your own triggers. You need to understand how you operate, you know, what's good for your well-being, what fills up your battery, as we often say. And I think, you know, for all our podcasts, for all our resources, we've got tons of things that can help people with well-being. And, you know, it's about reading, learning, watching videos and thinking about what might work for you. Yeah, that's really great. And you've been talking about well-being. And I know that you're really passionate about staff well-being. That's a big focus at Pharmacist Support. And how crucial has prioritizing staff well-being and your own well-being been to your success as a chief executive? I mean, it's absolutely crucial. If you don't have a culture of positive well-being in your organisation, I don't think your organisation will thrive. I think it can quite quickly become a toxic environment. I've found when you focus on well-being, people are much happier, they're much healthier, they're much more productive, and they want to be at work, and you're all kind of focused on that goal together. If everyone's kind of working individual and you don't really care about each other, that can be quite difficult. And I think often people say, oh, but we don't have the time. That's a nice to have. Like, oh, why would you make time for that? It's not a nice to have. You have to make time. And if you make the time, it will pay off in the long run. Yeah. You know, there's loads of evidence out there about prioritising well-being, how it can impact kind of staff sickness, staff retention, all of those things. So, you know, there's an evidence base if people want to read that. But I'm a huge advocate for it. And I think personally, you have to lead from the top. If you don't prioritise your well-being and people are watching you, you know, burn yourself out, then you're not going to inspire anybody to prioritise their well-being. And you also don't give permission to people. So you can be saying all the right things, you know, about work-life balance, but if they see you working every weekend, sending emails at midnight, they're not going to feel like they've got permission to take the break. So I think that's really important. So I think for me, what I've learned is, you know, you've got to develop your own strategies and then you can support others. So for me, you know, developing my organisational skills have been really important. You know, at time management, email management, you get an awful lot when you're in a senior position, and you can't, you know, you've got to be able to go, what needs the time and attention? What can you kind of get off your plate? You can't just allow yourself to drown in it. So I think planning is really important. You know, I use my calendar, I plan things out, but I'm really realistic with my time as well. Like, I think sometimes people feel like they should get through it all, and sometimes you have to say that's just not possible. And if you never feel like you're achieving, then quite quickly you're going to burn yourself out. And I think, you know, linked to that is being efficient with your time. And I found when I first started in my career, I got bogged down in detail, or I felt I needed to be involved in quite a lot of things. And actually, when you build trust within your team and you delegate properly, you don't need to be involved in absolutely everything. And I needed to be efficient with the time, especially when I was earlier in my career. You know, I had childcare pickup times. I needed to leave that office. And I think sometimes I got hung up thinking, well, some people are here till 7 o'clock. And then I realised, you know, that was just presenteeism. Like, they weren't necessarily being more productive. Well, I know some people weren't being more productive. They were just there. And that didn't mean they were better at their job than me. It just meant I'd got really used to being really efficient with my time. And I think you can learn to do that.
Yeah.
And then I think, you know, in the downtime, you've really got to prioritise your downtime. You've got to take your weekends. There's always a to-do list. It's always as long as your arm, and you could work every hour. You could work all weekend and probably still have a long to-do list. But if you don't take the downtime, you're going to burn out. Absolutely. So, you know, in terms of kind of setting that expectation from the top, always prioritising kind of weekends, downtime, annual leave, like doing that recharge. And then for me in that time, it's finding things that make you happy, that do recharge your battery, like what can boost your well-being. So I think that's a huge priority. I think if you don't look after yourself in a leadership position, your team's not going to thrive, because you're not setting a good example for everybody else. And like I say, you're not giving permission for them to kind of prioritise their well-being.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Very, very helpful. I think it's food for thought for people who are thinking about becoming leaders, for people who are leaders, probably for anyone in the team as well. So thank you. It's been really inspiring to hear about your path becoming a chief executive, and about how you would help others with similar ambitions, and the way that you see the role and the place for well-being in the workplace. So thank you. If, like me, you've found what we've spoken about today interesting, you can find further well-being information, videos, and online content on our website. If you're a pharmacist, pharmacy student, or trainee, you may be interested in checking out our workshop, Live the Life You Want to Lead, on our Wellbeing Learning platform. For further information on our support services, please click on the How We Can Help link in the podcast description. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you feel you may need support. We want to continue providing our free and confidential support services, and to open up conversations like this. If you enjoyed our podcast episode today, please consider making a donation so we can continue creating more content to support mental health and well-being in pharmacy. You'll find a link in the podcast description, or a QR code at the end of the video if you're watching this episode. Donations help us to provide our essential services. Thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next podcast.